Adidas Atlanta City Games. They are in the books. You can check out all the interviews that I got from the meet on, of course, Citius Mag. We got, tons and tons of stuff. But I want to dive in and talk about some of the results that were really, really amazing across the board. But first off, let's talk about some of these athletes who unfortunately didn't show up, as I got some confirmation as to why, certain athletes didn't show up. First off, Noah Lyles. He, of course, was the headliner and has always been the headliner at the past 3 Adidas Atlanta City Games, 2023, 2024, and then once again in 2025. Build potentially not confirmed by him, but at least like in the aura of like world record attempt. Could he actually break Usain Bolt's world record of 14.35 set all the way back in 2009? Last year, Noah Lyles had run 14.41 seconds, equaling the American record that Tyson Gay had run en route to his straight 200-meter time. But all that said, Noah Lyles pulled out of the meet. Actually, when I was recording, my preview for the meet, that's when his name, was taken off the start list. So why did he actually pull out? Of course, it was reported as injury, but he's not necessarily fully injured. And he may have said this on the broadcast, so feel free to let me know. But apparently he had some slight discomfort in his foot, and him and Coach Lance Brahman, they just didn't want to risk it. They didn't want to take the chance of him getting injured, so precautionary measures. They pulled out of the meet, and they just chose to, move on to the next thing. Again, he did come here. This is an Adidas meet, right? Every single top Adidas athlete across the world, who's relatively prominent and they can get in, was competing here. So Noah Lyles, because he was the headliner, he came here, he signed autographs, he did some interviews, whatever it may be. But again, some slight discomfort in his foot, just pulled out as a precautionary measure. I think that just speaks to how in the world of track and field, certain meets simply are not as important if they don't actually solidify you and qualify you for the world champs, or if they're not the world champs or the Olympics or whatever it may be, right? Noah Lyles has the wild card to Worlds in Tokyo this year, so he doesn't really have to do much throughout the season except go to USA's, show fitness, and then go to the Tokyo World Championship. So it is what it is, but that's Noah Lyles pulling out. Of course, in the 150, we did say Ferdinand Omanyala. He got the win there in 14.70. Nothing too crazy. I think the bigger story out of the actual race was that Alex Ogando false started. He was by far the clear favorite once Noah Lyles was no longer in the race. He just came off running 19.86 in Grand Slam track. Like, he was the clear favorite to win, but the false start kind of took away from that. Shout out to Omanyala, though. He kind of spoke about how he was really elated the fact that Kenya qualified for the World Championships in the 4x1, the first time that they've ever done it at Worlds, and the first time since 1988 that they've done it at either Worlds or the Olympic Games, right? 1988 in Seoul. So shout out to Ferdinand Omanyala on that aspect. On the flip side, let's talk about the men's 100, because Akani Simbine, he just took the win here. Right before that, one missing name was Erriyon Knighton. Erriyon Knighton was a DNS, did not start in the 100 in the heats there, and that was a whole question, like, what's going on with Erriyon Knighton? I was here the day before, just yesterday, actually seeing him at practice, right? All that at warm-up. But what happened? Unfortunately, there was just a mix-up of the time. So Erriyon Knighton, it seems like he just misidentified the time that he was supposed to run, where you had the 100-meter heats and you had the 100-meter finals. So he mixed things up and thought that he was supposed to run later, or just didn't understand the full time. So he was actually at the warm-up track, but that was at the same time that the 100-meter guys were setting up their blocks to start. So he didn't actually get to race, and I don't know, it is what it is. But the good thing is that he's healthy, it's fine, just a miscalculation in terms of the time. Also on top of that, Erriyon Knighton, we saw that he was supposed to go to World Relays. There were some rumors and conversations as to why he didn't go to World Relays, despite being announced by USATF. Some questions around, whatever, his status and things like that. But what actually occurred is that he got his Chinese visa very, very late, about a day or two before he was actually supposed to go fly out to World Relays. So he got his visa, and it was like one day before he was supposed to fly out, and then he would have landed one day before he was supposed to race. So it just didn't make sense logistically for him to fly all the way out, not get enough rest, and transition off the jet lag, and then get on the track and actually race. Not worth it. So again, speaks to how, again, some of these races and competitions maybe aren't as important as it relates to the long-term goals for an individual athlete in terms of getting onto the podium and competing at the World Championships. So that's Erriyon Knighton. Again, no, that was a little bit, but let's talk about that 100 with Akani Simbine, because this was Akani's show. 9.86 seconds in the 100, only slightly windy, right? Plus 2.3 meters per second. So nothing too crazy in terms of the wind behind him, but 9.86 literally dominated the field. Udodi Onwuzurike only came up for second in 10.05. Akani Simbine is absolutely on one right now, and I'm gonna have an individual video coming out about Akani, but he is on one. He is basically unstoppable at this point, and I think his level of confidence right now is unmatched in any other point in his career, in my opinion, just based on the conversations that I've had with him, especially down here in Atlanta. He has, of course, competed indoors to really get the first 60 of his race together, so that now when he goes outdoors, and he's been showing it, if he's with you, if he's with any athlete in the middle of the race, he's gone. He is going to be, taking over, and he's going to, get that win. Just like he showed, at Shanghai when he was able to take down Kashane Thompson in that race at the very end. So Akani Simbine, he is absolutely on one, and it's going to be hard for any athlete to keep Akani off that podium in Tokyo later on this year. Again, I'm going to do like a full video breakdown, but Akani is not to be played with. Let me circle back really quickly, as I just remembered, Oblique Seville, he in the heats actually kind of pulled up towards the end of the straight, right? About 80 meters into the race, he kind of started to pull up. He did finish third in his heat, and he eventually didn't qualify to the final. It looked like he might have been slightly injured. I do have some information as to, his status, but, looking forward to seeing how Oblique Seville kind of does progress. I'm excited. He still has Grand Slam track coming up in Philly, but yeah, definitely keep an eye out for Oblique Seville and see how he does kind of progress forward. But it wasn't the best of looks as it relates to competing at a meet like this, kind of pulling up, towards the end and not really performing to the best of his ability. Just the optics of, this happening in a race where we know Oblique Seville has been injury prone. He's dealt with injuries last year. That's something we never actually want to see. But shout out to the men's 100. But on the flip side, we also did see the women's 150 meters here in Atlanta. And of course, we saw a world record in the event. Favour Ofili ran 15.85 seconds to take down the world record that Shawnee Miller-Uibo had set all the way back in 2018, actually at this same meet, but while it was in Boston, called the Adidas Boost Games, right? And that took a massive chunk off that record. You're talking about 16.23 seconds by Shawnee. So to go all the way down to 15.8 by Favour, and last year, Favour actually ran 16.30 seconds, equaled with Candace Hill, who equaled the American record there. So she went all the way from 16.3 down to 15.85. Even Tamari Davis was right behind, running 16.14 seconds, which now moves her to number 2 all time in terms of the straight, 150. Yes, I know that the 150 isn't run very frequently, and I know that, there was a perfect tailwind. They got a 2.0, but I don't know. It speaks to how, of course, talented both of these women are, both Favour and Tamari, but then also the form that they're in, the confidence level that they're at. They are really on another level at this point. Now, you can, dispute what this actually means going forward, if Favour's going to get a medal, if Tamari's going to make the U.S. team, all that, right? We can, of course, debate that. But just in the moment, I think something like this definitely does need to be celebrated, considering it's an accomplishment that, might go overlooked because it's not a widely run event in any capacity. So shout out to Favour Ofili and to Tamari Davis. I'm excited to see how they kind of do progress. Moving over very quickly to the women's 100-meter hurdles, because this turned out to be a pretty exciting race overall. And the women's hurdles are always super exciting. Kenny Harrison got the win here in 12.30 seconds, literally just pulling away towards the end of the race ahead from Tia Jones, who ran 12.36, as well as Grace Stark, who also ran 12.36. Kenny Harrison, despite being the veteran of the women's hurdles right now, despite being, the former world record holder at 12.2, despite being, a former Olympic silver medalist, world, medalist, listen, Kenny Harrison has accolades, but I love to see her still kind of in the mix, competing with the best ladies and showing that, listen, even though I'm a veteran, even though I've been here for some years, right, coming up on a decade since 2015 when she made her first world team to Beijing that year, listen, I'm still here. 12.3 seconds, slightly windy, plus 2.1 meters per second. That shows that she's in some great form. She also just ran 12.4 at Grand Slam track in Miami. So Kenny Harrison is not one to be played with. And yes, you have Tia Jones, you have Masai Russell, you have Grace Stark, you have a lot of women in the United States who are very much coming for, spots on that team. But Kenny Harrison is still in that mix. Even on top of that is Tia Jones, who finished second place here in 12.36, but she has been clicking off some amazing performances. We saw her run 12.19, behind Masai Russell at Grand Slam track Miami. We saw her run, 12.3 here. We've seen her run 12.5. We've seen her run some consistent times in the 12 low range that is just building off the potential she showed last year. Remember, indoors, she ran the world record in the 60-meter hurdles, but then as she was coming off the, off the mat when she finished, she literally injured herself off of that. So, it just speaks to the potential that she really did have. I spoke with her coach, Tandra Buford Bailey, afterwards as well, and Tandra said, listen, she's just warming up, right? We're still in training. We're still, preparing for the USA trials as well as World Championships. Like, this is all collateral for the time being. So the fact that she's consistent right now, and again, this is like Tanja talking about how, she's doing right now. The fact that she's consistent shows that who knows what she's going to be capable of when we get down later in the season. So shout out to Tia Jones. She is very, very special. One of the few athletes to go straight from high school into the professional ranks. That doesn't happen very frequently, and you don't see as much success on a very consistent basis. So Tia Jones really showing out here. Speaking of Tanja Buford-Bailey, the women's 100 saw Cambria Sturgis take the win, running 10.98 seconds. This was the first time that she's broke the 11-second barrier since 2022. And in her entire career, it's only the third time that she's actually broken the 11-second barrier. Cambria Sturgis really showed out here, and I feel like she's kind of been one of the forgotten athletes, in track and field, because she was the double NCAA champion back in 2021, the 100 and the 200, but she unfortunately hasn't shown that form in subsequent years. And, again, I was speaking with Tanja just about how Cambria has been able to really get into the mindset of, listen, I know that I ran fast before, but how can I break out of that and really live up to the potential that I'm capable of now? Really live up to the talent that I have now. That's what, they've kind of been working on over the past months and years, where she moved to Tanja Buford-Bailey in late 2023. So shout out to Cambria Sturgis and, the progression that she's had, to be able to get to a point like this. Now, I'm not saying that she's about to make a team or anything like that. I can't predict that yet. The women's 100 is stacked. The women's 200 is stacked when talking about the United States, let alone the world. But this does at least give a little bit of motivation, right? A little bit of a stepping stone to say, hey, I can do this, right? So shout out to Cambria Sturgis. Also, Mackenzie Long, same time of 10.98 seconds. She hit the mat really, really hard on the back street or after the finish line here, though afterwards she did say that she is okay and she's all right. She just kind of like hit it a little harder than she would have, but she was speaking about how the transition from NCAA to professional has really worked out pretty well for the most part so far. The Olympic Games, going to the Olympics last year, making the final in the 200, that did help to, prepare her for what she's experiencing now, competing against the pros. So to run a 10.98 here, the wind was legal with plus 1.2. That shows that she's in some good form, and she's looking forward to going to the Diamond Leagues. I think she's going to Rabat next, and then Rome, and a couple others as well. So shout out to Mackenzie Long. Now, you did have another high-profile race in the men's 200 where Zarnell Hughes ran 19.55 seconds in a 200-meter straight. Yes, the wind was slightly over the allowable wind. It was plus 2.2 meters per second, but 19.55 in a straight 200. Do you realize that the world record in the 200 is 19.41 seconds, set by Tyson Gay all the way back in 2010 out in Manchester? The number 2 time all time was 19.5 hand timed by Tommy Smith, I think, in the 1960s. But the official number 2 all time was 19.8 by Wade Van Niekerk some years ago as well on a straight 200-meter track. Zarnell Hughes just ran 19.55, slightly windy, plus 2.2 meters per second. Jareem Richards ran 19.63, again, plus 2.2, so slightly windy. These are immaculate performances by these guys on a straight track. This just speaks to the form that they're in right now, the talent that, of course, both of them have shown over, the past couple years, really a decade for both of them at this point. And obviously, we've seen them both in Grand Slam track. They've been tearing it up. And again, this just kind of translated here. I love to see both of them really show up and really show out here. Zarnell Hughes, he is on a mission right now. He was injured in 2024. He wants to show back up in 2025 and show the field that, listen, I was on the podium in 2023. I got that bronze medal in the 100. Just because I was injured in 2024, just because I didn't make that 100-meter Olympic final, don't forget about me, right? Don't forget that I'm one of the best guys out here. Zarnell is really showing that between here in Atlanta and then also in Grand Slam track. So shout out to Zarnell Hughes as well as Jareem Richards. I also spoke with Wade Van Niekerk. He's just happy to be back on the track, right? He didn't run extremely fast, 20.03, and he hasn't competed since the Olympic Games. He might have done one kind of like grass track race in South Africa early in the year, but he's just happy to compete. I was asking him, like, what would 2025 look like? Like, what do you even want to do in terms of competing, the 200, the 400? He's just like, anything. I'm just happy to be back on the track. I'm happy to be healthy. He knows that, like, he's kind of on the second half of his career. He's dealt with so many injuries. He just wants to be back on the track and on racing. So I'm excited to see Wade Van Niekerk and, everything that he has coming in 2025. I did kind of report early in the year that he had switched coaches. I think I read an article from Olympics.com. He had moved back to South Africa. He confirmed that he moved from Lance Brahman in Florida back to South Africa because he had another child and he wanted to, be able to spend time with his wife and his child and just, raise his family in South Africa. So shout out to him. He has two kids now, and you know, he's raising an amazing family. So Wade, one of my favorite athletes. I'll never forget 2016. I think most of y'all won't forget as well. So that's the men's 200. You had the 200-meter hurdles for the men as well. Alisson dos Santos, 21.85 seconds to break the world record, you know, in the hurdles. We're going to see him back in Grand Slam track soon. We'll see him out there at the Diamond Leagues in Oslo and Stockholm, running the 300 hurdles and the 400 hurdles. He's in excellent form. Caleb Dean was right behind. Trey Cunningham, he got the win in the 110-meter hurdles, 13.16. Freddie Crittenden was right behind there as well. You also had Lena Aubrey-Jackson. She won the 200-meter straight. So a lot of great races across the board. I will say, having come to this meet over the past 3 years, that I think this year definitely was a little more like subdued in terms of the excitement and the thrill. Just, I don't know, it was an overall a different field. Now, to be fair, right, the headliner, Noah Lyles, he of course didn't compete, so you weren't gonna get him. We also didn't see Grant Holloway because he's been, you know, dealing with some setbacks as well since the Shaman Diamond League, so, you know, he wasn't here. So it's been a little bit of a different feel. On top of that, this meet used to be in the Centennial Olympic Park in the middle of downtown Atlanta, you know, with the Olympic rings, and that was like at nighttime, they had the lights on the track and all that. So that also gave a different feel than in Piedmont Park here in the middle of the you know, the park, and you know, you have fans just coming up and all that. So again, a little bit of a different feel relative to some previous years, but I do like the fact that some athletes did show up, but I will also acknowledge the fact that I know some athletes were like, listen, I just have to show up for my sponsor. I got to show up for Adidas. This is like an Adidas kind of like party or whatever it is to like showcase their athletes. It is what it is. It's the nature of track and field, whether, you know, I guess, I don't know if we like it or not. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I'm kind of mixed on when, like, I don't know, certain meets like this are put on, but if the athletes don't give it their all, then it kind of dampens the overall experience. But then I also understand athletes are focused on other things for the year, whether that's Grand Slam track, whether that's, you know, their US trials or Jamaican trials, whether that's the World Championships if they have the wild card, right? Those are the more important things as opposed to one-off meets throughout the entire year. Again, going back to Noah Lyles, he said, or at least his coach Lance Brahman said that he could have run, but he didn't want to risk it. It's not worth it to compete in this meet if the goal is a world championship. So I can understand why athletes, you know, treat a meet like this or other meets the way that they do. But let me know what you thought about the Adidas Atlanta City Games. It was great just to have the opportunity to be here once again, another year. Let me know what you think. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Always appreciate y'all. Thanks for watching.